So many of us face the fear of social annihilation, of judgment, of embarrassment, of cringeworthiness, and of just being dragged. Yes, let's get into it. Okay, let's get into it. Hello, sunshine, and welcome back to Paradigm Shift with Ayanda, a place where we reframe what is and reimagine what could be. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Let's paradigm shift together. Hello, darlings. Welcome back. I hope that you are being kind to yourself. I hope you are treating yourself with all the compassion. Babes, you deserve it. There's nothing you could do that would not make you a member of this divine universe and earth. And just remember that even though you may experience shame and you may experience the feeling of not being enough, you are inherently not shameful. You are inherently literally magic. There was such a small chance of you even being here on this earth as you are. And so I just want to say you are divine. You are part of the universe. You are cosmic magic. Okay. Today, we are going to be diving in to the topic of fear a little bit deeper because, you know, we love going deeper over here. I've been speaking about creative fear and I've been having these wonderful interviews and conversations with some of you on your experiences of creative fear. And what I wanted to do is dig a little bit deeper in the sense that I wanted to kind of give you more insight into what exactly I fear. Because I feel like I've told you, oh, I'm really afraid, but I don't know how much kind of depth I've gone into of like, what is this doomsday scenario situation that I fear the most? And then how does that fear affect how I behave and how I create? So the specific fear we're going to be talking about today is the fear of cancellation. And it is going to be such a wonderful conversation. I just know it already. And the fact that I've built enough confidence in myself and in my voice to say that before it's even happened makes me feel very good and very precious, okay, which I am. So anyways, before we jump in, I wanted to also give a little bit of context of like, why am I saying this? I've been on a couple of calls with people where they've said, you know, you're so fearless. You're just saying things on TikTok. You're just sharing your views and you have this fearless energy to you. I said, I'm terrified. Like I'm literally once a week at least on the phone with my best friend. Like, what am I doing? What if I look back and I regret all of this? Like, oh my goodness, like what have I done? What am I doing? What is going on? Like, why am I putting myself in this very precarious position of being perceived and being up for being kind of taken apart? Like, who wants to be taken apart? I want to be together with myself. And so I wanted to kind of like tell you more about that today. So I'm not fearless. I'm very afraid. And this is also why I've shared that essay by Audre Lorde so often. The words literally like come into my consciousness all the time. And of course I am afraid because the transformation of silence into language and action is always fraught with danger. I literally think about those words every single time I face fear. And I'm so happy that I've integrated that essay into my life so deeply that it comes to me so naturally, you know, those words, because it reminds me that like, yeah, I'm terrified. This is terrifying. Why would it not be? Especially in the culture that we are living in. So I just wanted to say like, yes, babes, I'm scared. I'm afraid. But let's talk about why, who, what, where, and how. Okay, let's talk about it. Let's get into it. So there's going to be 4 parts to this conversation. Not her with the structure, not her with the layout. Okay, I'm impressed. I find myself very, very intrigued, very, very excited and enticed. So the 4 parts are this. Okay, number 1. Like, what does she fear? What is she afraid of? Like cancellation? Interesting. What exactly? Okay. Number 2, okay, how does this fear show up for her? What does it prevent her from doing? Like, what is, you know, what's going on with the fear and how it literally shows up in a very tangible way so that we understand. Number 3, how has she experienced this before? Like when you're afraid of something, sometimes you've experienced like a taste of it. So what's your experience with cancellation? And number 4, I mean, she keeps posting. So so clearly she's like, what is she telling herself in reaction to this fear? You know what I mean? So that's kind of the uplifting side, which is what I've been focusing on in most of these episodes, is like, how can I provide something uplifting? But let's go on a journey. Like, you know, you have to have the climb before you can, I guess that metaphor is not working because the best part of a mountain would be declining. But I want to basically say that what goes up must come down. Like you have to have the counterweight. I don't want to just leave you with fear and, you know, anxiety and despair. I want to give you the hope and the light and the excitement. Okay, so that's what we're going to do today. 4 parts. And it's like I'm interviewing myself and I'm having so much fun. Like this is what I was born to do. I just know it. Anyways. Okay, so takes deep breath. The first thing that I said to you that I would tell you about was, what do I fear? And that's naturally the most, natural question to be asking. What are you so afraid of? Being cancelled. Okay, being cancelled is terrifying. And the fact that you're going to be publicly dragged in front of everyone, it's so daunting to me. It is so terrifying. I read the book, The Mountain Is You. And I wouldn't recommend it to you unless you genuinely feel you are the only thing between you and something that you're going after or pursuing. If there are many structural barriers between you and this thing, I think the book will incredibly frustrate you, because it's written from that very white, wealthy Western view of like, the only thing standing in your way, not racism, not poverty, not capitalism, not white supremacy, not colorism, not anti-fat bias, is you. Like, give me a fucking break. Give me a fucking break. But I was at a point where with my creative works, it was truly me. It was me. I was the drama. I was the one saying to myself, why aren't you doing this thing and not doing it? So I really felt, okay, I need someone to just like, sometimes I just crave a little bit of just tell me what I'm doing wrong. Sometimes I'm a masochist. What can I say? And that's what I was craving. But if you are like, no, dude, like I have no time, I have no money to do this, I have no community to do this, do not read that book, because it's not going to serve you. It's not going to serve you. Okay? It's not going to serve you. So I'm terrified. Oh, that's why I told you about this book. It's like, it's not for no reason. I was reading this book in a cafe and I started bawling my eyes out, because what that book says is essentially self-sabotage is kind of misunderstood, because when you are so quote unquote sabotaging yourself, there's an unconscious unmet need that you are actually protecting. But now that version of you no longer serves you. And the reason I started crying is what I realized was when I was thinking about like, oh, how are you kind of holding yourself back? And I feel like I'm kind of like, even though I'm on TikTok and I'm posting, I could be posting more. For example, I could be like going, posting more on my podcast. At the time I had taken a 6-month break. So I felt the sense of like, why am I silencing myself? You know what I mean? And what I realized while I was reading the book, the reason why I started crying is I was afraid. And I was afraid of being too known or seen, because when you have a lot of followers, especially as a Black creator on the internet, people are looking to tear you down. You know what I mean? We've seen it with so many creators. The creator that instantly came to my mind was Lip Gloss, who is a creator and was a TikTok creator. I think she left TikTok, and that was a really sad thing, because she was just like so celebrated and loved on TikTok, but she had to do what was best for her. And I can't speak for her or her reasons, but I do know that it was just so painful to see all the hate on Twitter that was kind of spread her way by cis straight Black men. And it's just like this constant pattern. I think this also happened with Aaliyah, where there's just like people who are so willing to criticize Black women when we get to like having a really big following, and Black people in general, Black queer people, Black women, like Black non-binary people. I just think that Black trans people, I just think that there's a lot of people lifting you up just to take you down. And it's really, really painful to watch in others. And it's, of course, just brings in the fear that like it's inevitable. And so therefore, keeping yourself back from that like extreme level of TikTok like fame is something that I definitely do. Okay. And so that is such an example of this fear that we need to preserve ourselves. Like, is it self-preservation or is it self-sabotage? As a human being, you are designed to protect yourself from danger. And so when you feel something is unsafe or makes you vulnerable or makes you precarious in some way, you are going to protect yourself from that threat. And so me not posting on those platforms was me trying to protect myself, is me trying to protect myself from the threat of public shaming and public cancellation. Okay? And the reason why it's so scary to me, social death is the words that came to me as I was reading The Mountain Is You. It was like, oh, the two things I fear the most in life is physical death, both of my family and like loved ones and of myself, and is social death. Those are the two things that I'm like, oh my goodness, how will I survive this? Well, the one, you simply won't, my love. But the second, it's like, how would I survive everyone hating on me? And then also the weird thing about the internet is, unlike other forms of work, if something happens to you at your job that is not on the internet, nobody's going to know. Like the people who are going to know are the people who are involved, which is very natural. It's very daunting. It's awful. It's humiliating because it's still your like social circle. It's still terrible. I'm not trying to say that it's not horrible. I'm not trying to say it's less, but it's something very different than when everyone in your life, including the people you don't know and the people you do know, will know. This feeling that I'm going to fall or trip. And it's not only that people on the internet will know, but like my friends will know. And we've all delighted in someone else's pain. Like that is what Twitter is and the internet is. Like it's literally dragging people and laughing at them, making fun of them. It's like finding out something about them that you feel justified in taking them down for. That's the other thing that I want to just emphasize. When it comes to the fear of cancellation, we may think, fuck the haters, you know what I mean? What if the haters are right? What if the haters are right? What if the haters are right? Like, what if they say something that I'm like, damn, like, that's true. You know what I mean? So it's not only the feeling that I'll be dragged for some nonsensical reason and how dare you say this to me? That is really painful as well because it sucks to feel like lies are being spread about you. That would be very painful. But I think what my ego, my sense of self fears most, I obviously have insecurities, obviously. I fear those being publicized. Something where I'm like, damn, you got me, you caught me in the act. What if there's legitimacy to what they're saying? That's what I mean. So it's the cruelty and it's the legitimacy and it's the precarity. You know what I mean? It's the fact that to be precarious is to be, it's almost like if you're made to walk on a tightrope. You don't have security. You are always able to fall. You're made to live in a way that you are not protected. You're precarious, right? And so it's like when you're posting on the internet, anything at any moment could go negatively viral. And so you are precarious. You got to face the truth. There's nothing that's going to protect you. If you are posting on TikTok and Twitter, nothing on all the, I don't know why Twitter keeps coming up, but I think that's because that's where the cancellation happens most, I feel like. Yeah, so it's like, anyways, so that also holds me back, by the way, from having a Twitter presence. It's like, I don't need that smoke, I don't need that heat. But your shit gets taken to Twitter anyways, and then they hate on you there. That's what happened to lip gloss as well. You know what I mean? There's just vitriolic things happening on that platform. And so it's this fear of, wow, like people at any moment could just start saying heinous things about me. And I'm sensitive. And I don't want, listen, let me tell you this. This would be a different conversation if I said to you, the one thing I want more than anything is to be famous. And I'll do anything it takes to get there. But babes, that's not the case. For me personally, I do not aspire directly for fame, but I aspire to live on this earth, my calling, which I feel like has to do with using my voice. Like this transmission of a message that is charged with energy that you can feel from this person, that she's speaking from this place of aliveness and of deep thinking and of deep feeling and of like using her heart and her mind and her soul and her wisdom and her doubts and her fears to serve others. That's what I was put on this earth to do in a way. You know what I mean? I was put on this earth to be in community with others and to love and to be light. Like I think the West has definitely taken this idea of purpose and made it really about like a commercialization of self. But what I want to just say is let's just go back and say, I think my dharma, my purpose to serve is to use my voice. And the consequence of continuing to do that on these platforms, because obviously if you think you have something meaningful to say, shouldn't you say it to as many people as could benefit from what you have to say? So that's what keeps bringing me back. You know what I mean? Is the fact that like this is bigger than my ego and my need to protect myself from the harm of being cancelled. So to make sure you understand this fear, it's this fear of this dehumanizing feeling of like, cancel, I understood, she did this thing, or she said she was this thing and now she's not this thing, or just some sort of fear around anything could go wrong. Anything could happen. Like literally anything. There's no one fear. It's the fact that anything can go wrong at any time. You know what I mean? The other fear besides like cancellation is just the physical harm that can come from being known. There's people who get stalked. There's people who the government attacks, demonizes, or criminalizes in some way. There are people who are physically attacked and harmed because they're now known. They're vulnerable because they're recognizable. So that's another fear that I have, is that Black people have been killed or put down or put into distress for saying a lot less. And here I am, I'm creating content on decolonization, on the states, on individualism. And I'm worried sometimes about that level of precarity. You know what I mean? That level of being attacked and being endangered for having an opinion as a Black person, as a Black woman on the internet. So that terrifies me. Okay, that's scary. That's not the focus of this episode. This episode is really about the fear of social death. The fear of everybody tarnishing my name and all the people in my life knowing, you know what I mean? The people who I went to, all the people you fear whose judgment, the people you fear may not really be rooting for you, but probably are not even thinking about you, or the people who just may delight in you falling on your face. You know what I mean? Luckily, my closest friends are not those people. And we're going to talk about solutions or like ways I try to reframe this. But that is a huge fear I have. So just to give you some flavor of what I was reading when I was thinking of this idea of social death, this is chapter 1 of The Mountain Is You, and reminder that it's a very individualistic take on what stands between you and what you want. And I was in the position where it really was about me, and it really was about the fact that I had the time to be creating a podcast episode per week. It doesn't take that much time. I had the time to be posting more on TikTok. It doesn't take that much time, but I was too afraid. It was really about me. And obviously there's many structural forces that shape your fear. So that's true, like anti-Blackness and anti-women sentiments and all of these things. But I really felt like the mountain was me. And so I read this book. Okay, so The Mountain Is You. Cue the music, please, babes. If there is an ongoing gap between where you are and where you want to be, and your efforts to close it are consistently met with your own resistance, pain, and discomfort, self-sabotage is almost always at work. On the surface, self-sabotage seems masochistic. It appears to be a product of self-hatred, low confidence, or lack of willpower. In reality, self-sabotage is simply the presence of an unconscious need that is being fulfilled by the self-sabotaging behavior. And this is really the paradigm shift that I do think can offer a lot of people something. It's the idea that we just say, oh, I sabotage myself. What we don't say is there is an unconscious need that I am meeting through this behavior. So in my case, not posting or not sharing myself or kind of holding myself back, I was trying to preserve and protect myself from the dangers that come with being overly seen and perceived. And it was this feeling that what goes up must come down. Like the more eyes that are on me, the more precarious, the more in danger I am. The more in danger of attack, the more in danger of cancellation, the more in danger of being dragged, the more in danger of having something to lose. So why not protect myself from having something to lose? So she says we must go through a process of deep psychological excavation. We must pinpoint the traumatic event, release unprocessed emotions, find healthier ways to meet our needs, to reinvent our self-image, and develop principles such as emotional intelligence and resilience. It is no small task, and yet it is the work that all of us must do at one point or another. Then she goes on to say, self-sabotage is a coping mechanism. Self-sabotage is what happens when we refuse to consciously meet our innermost needs, often because we do not believe we are capable of handling them. I think that's so true. And in my case, the innermost need was the need to feel secure and safe. And something that my therapist has said is that you have to give yourself that feeling and your community needs to give you that feeling. And we're going to get into what I do in response to these things. And that's really related, is that no one can give you safety in this case, like on the internet. But can you exist in such a way that you feel so much love for yourself, for your community, for the people you are trying to serve, that you are in some ways, you're meeting that need consciously rather than trying to protect yourself subconsciously. She says, in the end, self-sabotage is very often just a maladaptive coping mechanism, a way we give ourselves what we need without having to actually address what that need is. But like any coping mechanism, it is just that, a way to cope. It's not an answer, it's not a solution, and it does not ever truly solve the problem. We are merely numbing our desires and giving ourselves a little taste of temporary relief. That's so interesting. We are numbing our desires. The self-sabotaging behavior is a way to numb our desires, whatever that behavior may be. And obviously, this is not my only self-sabotaging behavior. This is just how it's manifesting in this conversation, okay? I'm going to read one last quote from this section of the book, which is that self-sabotage comes from irrational fear. Sometimes our most sabotaging behaviors are really the result of long-held and unexamined fears we have about the world and ourselves. And that is so true. Like, it's so true that I have this irrational fear that I'll be cancelled and it will be the end of the world. Everyone's going to attack me. Everyone's going to know and it's never going to end. The reason why that is irrational is even if I am cancelled, it's going to be a finite event. It will blow over. Like, I will survive it. I'm not the only person who's gone through this. I've received just so much love from the people in our community and the people who follow me that it's a little bit irrational because it's not based on real evidence, but it could always happen. So I just feel it's irrational. But even if it did happen, I think it's this fear that it will be this insurmountable challenge that will last forever. My whole life will be changed and nothing will ever be the same. That's irrational. Even if I am completely cancelled or dragged, I think that will be an event. It will blow over. Things will evolve. I'll learn things from it. Nothing ever comes in one side. There's always the side that you learn, the growth, the generative side. I think especially as Black creators, there is this feeling that we are disposable. Another thing that happened that shook me and that made me feel the sense that I was not incorrect for having this fear is the incredible, wonderful, sensational creator Sayhem on, I don't know how you'd pronounce their name, but they are a TikTok creator and a Twitter creator as well. And they're just incredible. They do so much education on anti-racism, on white supremacy, on just like therapy and healing. They are literally like such a divine presence and I'm obsessed, okay? And I always love everything they post. And it was really painful or really triggered this fear to see when one of their videos, which was about how people pleasing can be manipulative, which I agree with, by the way, and I'm a people pleaser. And I think that, yes, I mean, whatever, this is not the focus of what I'm trying to say. But as a result of that video, they received a lot of hate. On Twitter, they received so much vitriolic hate for saying that people pleasing can be manipulative. And so many people literally were saying such vitriolic and awful things that I will not repeat here. And I was like, this individual has literally given so much of their energy, time, and even if they hadn't, first of all, this individual is a human being of this earth and no one deserves to be disposed of. And as Black people, and it was Black people doing this, and as Black people, how can we treat each other with such disposability? Well, it's all structural. We've been made disposable. And so we inflict disposability on each other. But this divine human being has given so much time, energy, love to educating people and put themselves in danger. Like, it's always dangerous. It's always dangerous to tell the truth. And they're a radical truth teller. And here's how this is how we treat people who are trying to do their best to use their platform to spread messages that can bring healing and that can end forms of oppression. Like, it's just so wrong to me. It's incorrect. It's not okay. And so I just felt like, wow, that was such a tangible and poignant example of how disposable Black creators are. Like, it doesn't matter how much, it does not matter how loving and how, freedom fighting you are. As soon as you say something that people disagree with, they will throw you away. And it's hurtful. And what I always say, the reason why you will never see me criticizing a Black creator on the internet is because you never know. In fact, criticizing creators in general, because I just have like better things to do, but I understand that some people like spread harm and so on. But the reason why you won't see me criticizing Black creators who like are aligned to love and liberation and all of these like leftist or whatever you want to call it, anti-capitalist, like white supremacist, all the things, like those types of creators, the reason why you'll never see me dragging those creators is that you never know someone's mental state. You never know how close to the edge they are. You never know how they feel in their daily life. Just because you see someone posting on the internet, or they may have 1 million followers, 100,000 followers, however many, you have no idea what they are carrying in their personal life. And the fact that you would create something that may make their burden even heavier when we're all carrying things is so painful and hurtful to me. Why would you do that? Even if you strongly disagree with what someone has done. Like, especially what I don't like is when there's already been like 8 takedown videos and then why do we make the 9th? Like, why can't we just say, okay, it's been said? Like that, I don't understand the pylon culture that we impose on each other. And it's really painful to think that, and I'm going to talk about my experiences with cancellation next, but it's just like, I will never pile on to pain. Why would I do that? You know what I mean? It's just like, why would you do that? Like, why? You know, this person is receiving so much hate. Why give them more? You know what I mean? Why? As we talk about disposability, I want to read you this quote from Adrienne Marie Brown, and this is from the book Emergent Strategy. This quote really is something that I return to again and again and again, and it really speaks to how we can learn from nature as a way to combat disposability culture and cancel culture. This is a whole longer conversation because there's a bit of nuance when it comes to cancel culture, but I don't want to get into it right now. So I'm against disposability culture. I'm against treating people like they can be thrown away. And these two segments from the book Emergent Strategy are really going to elucidate why. Adrienne Marie Brown says, "Nothing in nature is disposable. Part of the resilience of nature is that nothing in nature is wasted. The earth swallows it all through mouths or soil or water. This is such a simple, beautiful truth. Everything in nature is food, fuel, compost, a home for some other creature." And then she concludes this quote by saying, "Nothing is disposable. The cycle of life ultimately makes use of everything." And I think that is so, so profound, right? That there's nothing on this, there's manure, there's compost, there's everything becomes something generative. Nothing is ever wasted. And now she contrasts this to humans. We are nature, but we don't act in accordance with ourselves as nature. Listen to these words because this is truly sensational, brilliant, and so profound. And it so speaks to the experience I just shared with lip gloss, with Sayhem, with what my own fears are, with cancellation, with disposability, and with precarity. Listen to this. "Humans have made of ourselves a hierarchy of value in which some people are disposable, can fail at being human, can be killed as a punishment, can be collateral damage, can be wasted or tortured or locked in a small box for their whole lives, given no hope of transformation or a future in society. And even those of us who critique these punitive methods, who are committed to justice, practice our own versions of prisons, blacklists, takedowns, and public executions. When we do not agree with each other, we destroy each other. When we feel competitive with each other, we splinter and destroy the other. We say we don't care and then invest time and energy into cultivating conflict with each other. When we feel scared, we destroy each other instead of working to get to the root of our fear." Like, wow. Can we just talk about that? And what she's inviting us into is, if we are abolitionists, if we believe in a world that is free from the punitive structures of the state, that is free from state violence and violence of all forms, that is free from prisons, that is free from harm, we have to become vessels of, microcosms of that world. I love what she says about we say we don't care and then invest time and energy into cultivating conflict with each other. This looks like every single fight on the internet I've ever seen. I don't care what you say, but, and then it's tear down, tear down, tear down. You do care. Why don't we get to the root of our fear? Why don't we say that hurt my feelings? You know what I mean? Why don't we hold each other instead of tear each other down? She asks this question, and I'll end here. How do we shift into a culture in which conflict and difference is generative, just as nothing in nature is disposable? So this idea that everything becomes useful for something else. How could we hold each other in such a way, not just hold each other accountable, which I think is something that's become such a common saying, but also hold each other in love and hold each other in such a way that repair is possible. And restorative justice as a framework is really powerful here. We're not going to get into this because this episode is getting longer than I had hoped, but that's okay because we clearly have a lot to say, and so it will be said. So this reflects on those stories I shared around the creators, but it also is a bigger conversation around abolition that needs to be had. Okay, so the next thing I want to go into, number 2, the second part she gets to at 30 minutes. How does this affect me? How does this affect how I show up? And it basically affects me by limiting myself. I limit myself It may not seem like this to you because obviously I post a lot, but I have so much more that I do not post. There's so many things that I am afraid to say, or there's so many things that I want to say, but I'm afraid of. And there's just been so many, I have like 400 drafts on TikTok of videos that were perfectly okay, but I'm too scared to keep putting myself out there. And so I'll have these bursts of posting 10 videos and then not posting for 2 weeks, trying to be consistent and then not. And then similarly with the podcast, I told you that I recorded the first episode like 5 times. That did not need to happen. You know what I mean? I was trying to protect myself from saying something that could get me, dragged in some way where it would be like, oh, you didn't include this person or that person. And I think with for example, my work on beauty, even though I love tackling the beauty culture and beauty hierarchy, it is scary to tackle an entrenched system. Like, it's scary to go against what has been, the status quo. And I think the idea that you're just fearless, it's almost dehumanizing. Obviously, it's meant to be a compliment, but I just think it erases the fact that it's always scary to speak out against an institution that is established and that is beloved. It's always going to be terrifying. Like, you're never going to be like, yes, I'm speaking out against this prized institution that so many people love and that is core to their identity. Of course I'm afraid. So many people make sense of the world through beauty. So many people, practices that bring them beauty, the identity of beauty, it's so central to their worldview that of course it's terrifying to sometimes attack that. And obviously you focus on the love and the freedom that lies on the other side. But the idea that you just aren't afraid, like for example, I'm afraid to talk more about like prison abolition and go against the state of the US because and even though I really want to do that, it's terrifying. Like, it's very scary. So it's like there's so many views I have on imperialism and on capitalism and on the state and on especially like prison industrial complex, where especially the US, like I've lived there for 10 years. It just scares me as an immigrant to be speaking out against the state. You know what I mean? That's scary. So yes, I'm afraid. So it holds back what I post. It holds me back in terms of how often I post. And there's this perfectionism element that, okay, like if I'm going to do this, I have to do it perfectly, which is also a form of silencing. And it's a form of self-sabotage, as in you're meeting the unmet need of protecting yourself from being fully vulnerable, because there's a connection between vulnerability and being allowed to be seen as imperfect. And so I think that's another way that it shows up. Okay, now we're going to get into the juicy and spiciest part of this episode, which is, let me take a sip of coffee. Ooh, I just was trying to create a sound effect of like the clinking ice against the glass, but I ended up just spilling my coffee. Okay, this is the spiciest part of the party, okay? Let's talk about my experiences thus far with cancellation. And just the fact that I'm now able to speak about this means I've grown, which is amazing. So lovely. So I've had 2 experiences of cancellation. And the first one was when there was a Vogue cover. There was a Vogue cover of Black women models who were all dark-skinned, I think mostly Sudanese. And it was a really powerful cover. I think it was by Edward Enifil. And I posted a video on TikTok and I said that even though this may seem like it's inclusive, it's still anti-fat and fat-phobic, and anti-fatness is rooted in anti-blackness. And wow, did they not drag me for filth? Drag me for filth. They dragged me so hard and I'm a Cancer. I'm sensitive. It was very painful. Anyways, so people were like, how can you say that anti-fatness is anti-blackness? You're saying that Black people are only fat, which was an interestingly anti-fat thing to say, because what would be wrong with that? But anyway, like, there are Black thin people. Fatness is not intrinsic to Blackness. And I had put in the video, you have to read Sabrina String's book, Fearing the Black Body, where she explains that the whole idea of anti-fatness as an ideology came to bear because from these white colonizing men, from the concept of anti-blackness, like it was in shaping the notion of blackness that anti-fatness arose. And you have to, it's too nuanced for me to explain here, but if you search Sabrina Strings, you can learn more about this. But the point is, people were dragging me. They were being so mean. They were like really, really rude. Obviously, you must be so miserable. The social justice warriors are going too far these days. Like all of these things. The problem is I can't really portray the vitriol that they shared because I've like blocked it from my mind. But I just felt like the whole world was against me. And then when I went live, someone commented, hey, did you know that they've taken your video to Twitter and they're dragging you there? No, I did not know that. So So I just felt so attacked, and it felt like the whole world was against me. And I remember my cousin sent me a text like, "Cuz, I stand by you." And also that made me feel weird. Like, I'm glad she texted me, but I was like, damn, like people are seeing this. And so that's what I was saying. It's not just that you're being dragged, but everyone in your life knows. And I love my cousin, but it was just a testament in my brain confirming the belief that everyone was in the know. You know what I mean? That I was being dragged for what I said. And the other thing about this type of being dragged is it's by your own people, which makes you like, oh, what if there's truth in what they're saying? So this was coming from a lot of Black women, and a lot of African Black women specifically, saying this is our first cover, you know, of lonely African women on Vogue. It's a big deal and it means so many people. Like, why would you ruin it for these women? Why are you trying to ruin this moment? And so that, I mean, there's truth in that. I hear what you're saying. Like, I get it. People didn't say it in this way, but this is how I read it with compassion now, of like, yes, these women are all thin, but they've all faced a lot of anti-Blackness and colorism in their industry, and so a win is a win, you know what I mean? Which I understand, and now I can see the others, like I can see that side. And that was really the commentary, was like, oh, we can't have anything, like just let it rest. I was trying to kind of problematize this idea that just including thin Black women means it's inclusive, which I still disagree with. Like, it's not inclusive. And it was just painful. It was really painful to have so many people against me. The other thing that they said in my live, which is also why I kind of stopped going live after that, but you see, that's me protecting myself, because going live would actually probably be like wonderful now. But anyways, was they were saying that, did you know that a lot of big TikTok creators commented in agreement, you shouldn't have posted this video? Like, a lot of big creators said, girl, like, stop, this is not necessary. And that made me feel afraid as well. At that time, I might have had like 40,000 followers, 30,000 followers. And so I was like, oh my word, all these big creators who I want them to like me are like hating on me. And again, that's also why I said, like, I'll never do that. Like, you never know. What if, oh my word, in this little 3-minute section, if you just trigger warning, analyzing yourself for the next like 4 minutes, no more than that. So in that moment, those experiences of feeling like everyone was against me, I have literally like never felt so low. You know what I mean? I've never gone to those places. I'm blessed in that I'm lucky in that I don't suffer from suicidal ideation. But for the first time in my life, I did during that period. And it's so interesting to reflect on that now. And like, the reason why I try to protect myself, and I'll tell you how, is that I never want to feel like that. Like, my life is worth so much more than like being made to feel worthless for something I posted on the internet. And yet you can know that intellectually, but like, I just didn't feel that way. I felt like everyone was against me. I felt like I would never live this down. It would never end. I would always be known as that girl who just couldn't let Black women have a Vogue cover. I would always be dragged. And when I posted again, I tried to post a like apology video or something. I don't know what it was. It was kind of like it was one of those trying repairs, and everyone was just hating on me again. And it was just so painful. And I remember my spirit feeling so low. And it was like that song from Euphoria. I never felt so lonely, felt so no. You know that song? Ooh, that's literally the feeling of like that euphoria, grief and pain and suffering. And it was so long ago now that you can tell my energy is distant from that moment. So the emotional charge of it, I can't like fully transmute to you, because I feel like I've overcome that incident. And so that really was really terrifying. The other hate comment experience I've had is when I was basically, which I wouldn't make this video now, but because I've grown, but I was basically talking about Zendaya and Tom Holland. And I was basically saying that in heterosexual couples between Black women and white men, Black women are made to, when we date outside of our race, there's this different kind of beauty standard where a white man, if he dates a Black woman, the Black woman has to meet the beauty standard, the Eurocentric beauty standard. But when Black women date white men, they do not have to meet that beauty standard. I still I understand the sentiment of what I was saying, but people who love Tom Holland, oh my word, I was even like, who is Tom Holland? And obviously he's famous. And now I actually really like him. And like, I just wouldn't like talk about a human being that way. Like why would a man be there? Like why would I do that? Like, it's not a good use of my platform. Or like, it's not a good use of, I don't want to spread that kind of message, right? It also is rooted in like lookism and beauty standards. But listen, I'm not going to be defending anyways, a lot of Tom Holland fans were breathing down my neck. I had the straight white men being like, what do you mean, who is Tom Holland? Who are you? You know, I'm praying for you. You must be so miserable to post something like this. like that did not go down well. And what did she learn from these two experiences? She learned to never criticize celebrities on the internet. Like, you wish it was a higher lesson, babes. That was the lesson. I am too weak. My spirit is not strong enough to deal with the heat and the hate that comes from criticizing celebrities on the internet. That is when you will be dragged the worst. People have no God in the society, so they cling to celebrities. You know what I mean? Like, people, by that I mean, obviously a lot of people believe in God. What I mean is that so many prized and cherished institutions have been robbed from people. There are less, young people engaging in collective spiritual activities. There's less third places. So they pin all of their spiritual aspirations and love onto celebrities. So celebrities are the gods of society for a lot of people on the internet. So when you critique those people, it's like you're critiquing their God. It's literally like blasphemy. You know what I mean? Like, that's how they feel about it. Like, that's why, like, if you criticize like Beyonce or like anyone who's loved, babes, get ready for the heat. You know what I mean? And I do think people should be like, no one should be impenetrable to critique. That is a very oppressive way to live. You know what I mean? That creates, protecting these like millionaire, billionaire class from critique is not correct. But it's just not going to be me carrying that load on my back. I don't have to be the one criticizing the celebrity. I know other people are going to do it, and I'll hit like, and I'll hit reshare. You know what I mean? Because there are things that people do. Now, though, that I am, in this position, I feel a lot more compassion towards when like something very drag worthy happens. I'm like, you never really know the fullness of the situation. Like, you don't know what happened. Let me just like try and be a manifestation of love on this earth. Like, that's what I think I'm here to do. It's a complicated conversation, because it's not that I don't believe people should be held accountable for things. It's just like there's a vitriolic and mean way that it doesn't need to happen in. So anyways, I just wanted to like give you those two examples, because they completely changed my approach to TikTok in the sense that I stopped criticizing celebrities, even though those videos will go extremely viral. Like, if you come out and say, here's one thing I don't like about, or here's one thing this person did wrong, and it's like a famous person, obviously it's going to go super viral, but it's going to go negatively viral. And that's not what I want. That's not what I need. Okay, so I wanted to give you those two examples so you kind of understood that I experienced those experiences. I felt extremely low. I felt worthless. I felt like, damn, I'm never going to live this down. This will never end. And that is the irrational nature of the fear. Like, it does end. It does end. You do move through it. And now what I tell myself is, whatever you fear has already happened. So if you fear being cancelled, in a way you already have been, and yet here you are. You know what I mean? And even now, like, I don't read every single comment on TikTok, but I'm pretty sure a lot of, like, some of them are negative. You know what I mean? So what I fear has happened, and even it's happening now. Like, there could be someone right now leaving a hate comment on my TikTok, and I'm alive. You know what I mean? I'm alive. Like, I'm alive. You know what I mean? And now I really want to protect that aliveness from being vulnerable to other people's opinion of me. That brings us to section number 4, our final section of today's podcast, which is so much longer than I promised myself my parties would be 30 minutes, but I guess I had a lot to share. Anyways, so part number 4 is the uplifting part of the story. Like, what do I tell myself in the face of the fear of social death, in the face of the fear of annihilation, in the face of the fear of cancellation? What do I tell myself? Okay. Here's how I respond. And some of these are like spiritual advice, and some of these are like tactical. So I tell myself, become uncancelable. And you may think that means one thing, but it means something else. So when you hear the words become uncancelable, you may think, oh, become someone that no one would cancel. That doesn't exist. So what I mean by that is become internally, do the work internally of loving yourself so much that no one could say something that would let you throw yourself away. Become someone that is so rooted in her truth and in herself that she cannot be completely toppled over by people's hate towards her. Now, I think as a social being, this is not maybe fully possible. We're always going to be susceptible, vulnerable to other people's opinions of us, because we're social beings and we were designed to need each other, to be interdependent. Right? And that's what's happening. I'm interdependent with others, yet others are the ones who may actually end me in some sort of way. But create a sense of peace, stability, and love, such that you are not so easily blown and toppled over. What does that look like? It looks like creating spaces for self-intimacy. Things like journaling. It looks like things like writing a love letter to yourself. Things like staying deeply in touch with what you love about yourself. Listening to this again, I realized that I wanted to provide something that anyone could access. And I know that many people don't have community and loved ones and a support system. And so I just want to be clear that in an ideal world, you wouldn't have to pour so deeply into yourself. You would be affirmed and supported and loved by a community of people. But I just know that a lot of people listening to this don't have that support, are alone, are isolated. And so I wanted to provide examples of something that the self can pour into itself. However, it is of course really important to say that if you have access to, if you have love in your life from your community, from your family, from your loved ones, from your pets, from nature, like seeking these forms of support and love can so counteract this fear of cancellation. Because when you fear being cancelled, it's almost as though your online life is taking this huge priority in your life. And I'm going to talk about this further on. Whereas like what I think really matters maybe as well, if you don't want to think about it in a binary way, is how we connect to our local community. That could be the people there, or it could be the plants, the trees, like any sort of activity or something that brings aliveness into our world in a very tangible way, such that like being cancelled is not our hugest fear or concern, because that's like online and we're living offline. Okay. And so I think become rooted in love and become rooted in something higher than other people's opinions of you. Like no one can determine you. You know what I mean? You can never be, the second thing I tell myself is you can never be reduced to one thing. I have created a whole body of work, and none of that work could even represent me. But what I'm saying is, if I have a video that goes negatively viral, I have like 1,000 more. And like, that's what I found so unfair about the Say Him example, is that no one takes into account the fullness of you. They see this one thing and they're just ready to like topple you over. And I think that's really unfair. And it kind of makes you like, okay, then what is the point? Like, what is the point if you could lose it all? But then you just have to remind yourself that like those people were maybe never for you if they were so willing to dispose of you. That comes to the third point. Build an intimate community of people who deeply are invested in being in loving community with you, who will hold you, who it's not that you could do no wrong. It's not an unconditional and toxic kind of love. It's more the fact that they're not going to dispose of you because they're choosing a specific orientation and relation to you that is rooted in love. But basically, when you're in community with people, you're not disposing of them. You're not looking for their mistakes. That's the other thing. When you create content, especially like this, you have to decide, who am I making this for? Am I making this for the people who are going to disagree with me? In which case you put all these caveats, exceptions. You're like trying to be so careful. Or am I making content for the people who do support me and who want to hear the best in what I'm saying and who want to give me the benefit of the doubt and who want to hold me and grow with me? You know what I mean? Who want to pour into me and who I want to pour into. So that's been really critical as well. That is why I started a Substack, because it's like, you're not going to go to someone's newsletter or podcast unless you really like genuinely fuck with them. Like, I know that if there's a content creator that I listen to their podcast, it's because I genuinely fuck with them. Like, there's not something that they could do that would just make me like, fuck you. And publicly be like, you did this and this. That's just not how I relate to people. So it's similarly like, I would want to love them through that. I would want to hold them through that. I may question what they did. Like, obviously sometimes you see something and you're like, I don't agree with that, but I'm not going to externalize or punish someone. I'm just going to say like, oh, maybe I don't know the full story, and move on with my day. You know what I mean? I move on with my day. So that idea of create an intimate space, a space where you can more deeply connect, where you can share yourself in this way that you're not like susceptible to everyone just like criticizing you. I think that's so important. And I would say if you're a content creator or aspiring creator, even if you have nothing to say, just have a link in your bio. If only I'd done this from the beginning, where you have a newsletter. Please, because you have no ability to speak to your audience unless you have their email addresses. Otherwise, the algorithm owns your connection to the people who resonate with your voice. And I think that's so incorrect. So make sure you have just a landing page newsletter where you can take people's emails who really, really fuck with you. That's going to be so, so helpful. The fifth, I don't even know what number it is, thing I tell myself is This feeling connects you to so many people. That's something I say often. If you're afraid of being canceled, if you've been canceled, you're not the only one. I know I'm not the only one. Like, you're not the only one. You know what I mean? There's so many other people who feel that way, and who have felt that way and who have overcome it. Like being canceled. How many people around the world right now are sitting in their rooms like crying, or who just got over this experience of feeling like public, it could be they were cyberbullied at their school. It's like a human experience now of like being on the internet, is that you are vulnerable to people hating on you in a public way. The sixth thing I tell myself is that no one can die for you. So if you stop yourself from sharing your voice and sharing your truth and putting yourself out there, you have to remember that, like, if you're doing that to protect yourself from what other people think of you, you're letting them control you and decide for you. When it comes to your day, my day of death, they're not going to die for you. And they shouldn't. I'm not saying they should. And so I think even though that may be a bit jarring, it reminds us, it's just like that book. I haven't read it, but there's that book that's like the 5 regrets of the dying. One of those regrets is I wish I had the confidence to live a life that was true to myself. It's something like that. And I just think that's so true. You are the one who must be true to yourself. Like, it's like, who are you? I'm the one who's going to die. You know what I mean? And so I'm the one who's got to live in accordance with that truth that I feel within myself. So if you feel called to do something, babes, you have to do it. You don't have to do anything. But like, let yourself live a micro version of that. You know what I mean? That's what I think. The 7th thing I tell myself, this is actually probably much higher on the list, but whatever, is build an offline life that you love so much that your online life is irrelevant. And next year, I really want to join like a dance group. Like, I started dance classes, but then I stopped because of resistance. But next year, I want to do that again because I want like some sort of community element that is so not rooted in this idea of you as a content creator. Because it's like the ego, honestly. Like, it's the ego death that needs to keep happening. The 8th thing that I want to leave you with, and this is my favorite of all of the things that I've left you with in terms of what I tell myself, is there is this idea that the internet is a shallow place, that being a social media content creator, oh, you must be so shallow. You must be so frivolous. You know what I mean? Like, you must not have like this deep value system, right? Like, if someone says, oh, I'm an influencer or I'm a creator, you're like, oh, like you create little videos on the internet. Like, I'm not like that, but a lot of people, that's their reaction. I've had this in my life as well. They're like, oh, you just like, you know, they belittle what you're doing. Nothing is one thing, and there's paradox in everything. Paradoxically, this journey of sharing myself publicly has made me have to face myself in such a deep and intimate way, face what I don't like about myself, face what I'm afraid to be seen as, face my truth, and face my voice and my power, face that I have things to say, face that I have an energy within me that deserves to be transmitted. We all do. But that, like, this is my calling. I've had to face that. And in this process of facing the self, such deep and generative growth has happened. Such self-love and self-intimacy and self-understanding has happened from this so-called frivolous channel. And so there's this idea that the things that trigger you are your invitation to really look more deeply at yourself. So my fear of being canceled is tied to my need to people please. You know, my fear of being canceled is tied to the feeling that I feel disposable in myself. I throw myself away when I'm not doing a good job at something. I'm the one who gets to decide, like, that I am disposable. You know what I mean? And I do that to myself. I'm like, oh, you're worthless now, you know, because this shameful thing happened to you. And so I want to love myself so much to the point of number 1, that I'm never worthless. I'm always full of worth. We all are. We're always worthy. And the beautiful thing about this idea is that your mess is your message. That's what Sahara Rose, I love her podcast, by the way. It's called The Highest Self. She has like 500 episodes. So you definitely will find something that resonates with you there. But essentially, she says that whatever you feel wounded by, it's like it's your work to help that wound heal in society. So if you are feeling wounded by shame, which I am, you can bring people the idea, the notion that they are not shameless. And that's what I try to do. I take this pain that I have and I try to make it generative for others. I say to them, there's nothing that you could do that would make you worthless. You are the universe. You are natural. Every manifestation of you, everything you do, even if you feel so embarrassed by it, is not intrinsically embarrassing. It's that you live in a society that shames you out of being yourself. All of this messaging, where does it come from? It comes from my spirit. It comes from my sensitivity. And that's the paradox of sensitivity that's so profound, is that the beauty of sensitivity is that you are sensitive to the world. That means you're able to be attuned to the world and to yourself. But the pain of sensitivity is that you are sensitive to the world. And so that is the real energy that I draw from, is my being sensitive, is the fact that there's many people who say things like, oh, I don't care what people say about me. I'll never be one of those people. I do care. But as such, there's a part of the human experience that I can tap into that resonates with people because it's rooted in feeling, which we are. We are feeling beings. So it's like this thing that you're so afraid of actually could be what makes you so like powerful at the thing that you want to do. You know what I mean? Like that is your craft. That is your work. That is your energy. Is this pain that you are afraid to move towards. If you are willing to face it and be like, this is what I fear. This is the pain. This is the shame. This is the you can use that, make it generative and share it and channel it into what you're doing and share it with others. So yes, I fear being cancelled and it may happen. You know what I mean? Again, it's already happened. It may happen again. And it may happen again and again and again. But it's if without that fear there would be no sensitivity to the notion of that precarity, which I'm now able to give voice to, which is powerful and which may speak to at least one person. So it's all power, babes. It's all energy. And we don't have to let the fear stop us. And sometimes it does because we're human beings and that's okay. And so then that is what it is. You know what I mean? And so I just want to say to you, like, listen, like maybe one day there'll be a group for cancelled people. Like there's always something generative that can occur. You know, as more and more of us are sharing ourselves in the internet, there's going to be a social infrastructure that will form, whether it be online or offline, to support that need that's becoming more and more prevalent. And because so many of us face this fear, so many of us face the fear of social annihilation, of judgment, of embarrassment, of cringeworthiness, and of just being dragged. So many of us are going to band together and find community with each other and find resonance and find our people through our fear. So our fear can connect us to one another. Like, oh, I fear that too. Let's talk about it. You know what I mean? So yes. So here I am. This is what I'm doing. I'm facing my fear. I hope that you learned something in today's conversation. It was like an hour, which is wild. I love you so much. You can be afraid and create anyways. Okay, I promise you. But this is really about my experience. I hope that it resonated with you in some way or the other, because I'm sending you all the love and I'm sending you all the vibes. You are enough and your fear does not have to stop you. It can, because that is the self meeting that need that you can choose to meet consciously. But I promise you, you're not disposable. There is nothing you could do that could make you worthy of being thrown away. And so I just want to say we are worthy. We are compost. I'm sending you lots of love, lots of light, lots of happiness, lots of joy, lots of peace, lots of tranquility. Okay? I hope that you find love in the world, in the universe, and I hope that it finds you in the coming weeks, months, years of your life. There's forms of love that you will experience that you don't even know are possible at the moment. I manifest that for you. I hope some paradigms have been shifted for you in today's conversation. As always, if you can, please leave a 5-star rating on Apple and Spotify. Like, comment, subscribe. I love you so, so much. Okay? I love you. Join me on my Substack. Links in the comment section. Go there. Okay? Love you so much. Love you. Bye.